Hello everybody, I come today to bring you error 53. Let us begin. It seems like just another email. Mark was seated in front of his computer desk, Shinhesser headphones on as he scrolled through the seemingly never-ending stacks of email. There were the likely suspects, letters of adoration from fans, game suggestions and downloads, and of course, a few fans merely wanting to get in touch with him. The email he had opened and was scanning through currently seemed to be just another game suggestion. There was a download link provided, but no name for the game. The sender had an email address that was made up of a series of seemingly random numbers. The body of the email beside the link was short and a bit unsettling. It merely read, "I'm so sorry." Although it seemed a bit sketchy, Mark figured he might as well give it a try. He had yet to receive a virus in an email from a fan, and figured it was just a creepy game, and the sender was trying to give him the creeps as early on as possible. Mark set up his usual recording routine, and prepared to make another video. After rolling through the game fairly quickly, Mark decided that it was probably just a joke game meant for a few cheap scares. The obviously scripted glitches and jump scares made this clear early on. Something, however, was clearly wrong with the game. During a few of the jump scares, a single frame would pop up quickly. These frames were pictures of real crime scenes and murders. Many were of people completely hacked apart, their blood surrounding them in a pool. It was disturbing to say the least, and it brought a very obvious question to mind. Who in their right mind would use those gory images in a game clearly made as a cheap joke? Mark shook his head and slipped his headphones off his ears to hang them around his neck. The apartment was silent, aside from the sound of Mark's computer chair squeaking in protest as he leaned back against it. After the brief squeal came another sound. It was far off, elsewhere in his apartment. It was so subtle, it made Mark strain his hearing to catch it. He peered out the open door to his room into the hallway that led to the kitchenette and living room area, while remaining seated. He was absolutely still and silent and tried to pick up on the noise. It danced at the very outskirts of his hearing, but he managed to make it out. It was a drawling groan that seemed to be backed up by someone sucking in great draughts of air, as if the constant groan had completely worn them out their lungs. It repeated and doubled over itself as if attempting to grow in strength before finally fading out. Mark remained poised, ready to catch the noise if it were to return. He remained in his focused state for nearly half an hour before finally moving. His heart was thundering in his chest, and his mind rushed to the thoughts of what that may have been. He shook it off as nothing more but an auditory illusion, and turned back to his computer screen. It was completely black. Mark quickly shook his mouse, but there was no response. He checked the computer tower and monitor. They were both on. He began pressing keys until finally hitting the escape key. A text box appeared in the center of the screen. It read, "Error 53, which was followed by a string of scrambled letters. Mark frantically tried clicking the small X in the upper right-hand corner of the text box, but each time it would reappear immediately after. It was only after a dozen or so clicks that he realized the letters were slowly unscrambling with each click. A few more clicks, and the letters settled into their respective places. It made a sentence. The text box now read, "Error number 53. There is no escape." All at once, his computer and monitor shut off in a flash. They began to boot themselves back up with the usual soft whir of the internal fan. Mark plucked his headphones off his head, setting them on the desk before walking out of the room. He wandered through his apartment to try and clear his head. He eventually returned to his room to find his computer was now absolutely fine. After running a few scans, the final diagnostics was a clean computer. He checked the files. Nothing was missing except for the nameless game he had downloaded. There was no longer where he saved the file, and was nowhere to be found. As if it were deleted, Mark gave a small sigh of relief to the thing being done. Some things were just too creepy, even for him. A few days passed, and Mark's mental and physical conditions had deteriorated significantly. He couldn't sleep at night due to the drawling chant he heard before, now coming back in full rage, coming back ever closer, until it seemed to originate right outside his bedroom window. The sound was like a chorus of demons trying to serenade him to sleep. Even though he managed to fall asleep in his dreams, he was plagued by nightmares of horrific murders, people being chopped to bits, heads being cut off in graphic detail, so realistic he could swear he could feel the blood spray on his face. If it wasn't terrible murders, a face plagued his dreams, without features, and not unlike the face of Slender Man. It seemed to stare at him all night with an unrelenting and uncanny gaze. Not necessarily meaning him harm, but not friendly either. Finally, Mark decided he needed to start recording videos again. Up until that point, he had released some pre-recorded content, as he didn't want to go near gaming for a while. Now he was determined to get back in game in an attempt to distract his mind from the last couple of days. He scrolled through his email for a game suggestion that would be less horror-oriented. Horror games were the last thing he needed. His eyes locked on a single message as soon as he spotted the email. It was the same address as before, that seemingly random string of numbers. He timidly opened the email and read another short message followed by a download link, this time for a game named Mr. Kitty Saves the World. The message read, this time, no turning back. Mark reluctantly downloaded the game. It seemed innocent enough, but as he had learned from the last game he had played from Slender, he couldn't trust it. He set up his recording and started the game. Immediately, it went horribly wrong. The game was pixelated and a mash of black and purple. The music was disorienting and far too loud. He played, though, stumbling with the controls to make his character jump over furniture. The game quickly broke down and the graphics began to glitch and mash together. The music was jumbled in a mess of 8-bit screeches until it finally hit a peak and screamed so loud that his ears... He ripped off his headphones and to try and cease the sound. It was then he realized that the sound was not from his headphones, but it was from all around him. He clutched his ears and let out a pained scream. As he squeezed his eyes shut, the screech was so loud it was physically painful, and he curled up in his computer chair in agony. Within a few moments, the noise stopped completely, all at once. Mark took a few moments, still holding his ears, nursing them back to somewhat functionality. He peered up to his computer screen. It no longer held the game, but a face he knew all too well. The face that had been part of his most recent nightmares. It had that same neutral gaze as it twitched and shuffled with the purple and black pixels on the screen. A new noise took over where the screech left off. That drawling groan that haunted him for the last couple of nights began again, and now seemed to be in the room with him. Utter fear overtook him, as the chorus of demons behind him now held some semblance of organization. Instead of just an empty groan, it seemed to be making sense. It was forming words. A breathy voice finally gained full volume and spoke, "Thank you." Before he could react, there was crushing pain in his legs that quickly worked its way up his body. He retched and heaved as the force pressed on his stomach, nearly vomiting. As it crushed his chest, he gasped for breath, making a husky cry for help that resembled the breathy moans that had surrounded his hearing. Finally, its sound rounded his head, and his vision was blacked out as the constricting force now consumed him. His struggling did nothing, and soon he was fully consumed. No one would ever know what happened to the YouTube gamer Markiplier. He was so close to 1 million subscribers, but all of a sudden, he seemed to disappear off the face of the planet. His fans were left in a frenzy. After the day he disappeared, an email was sent out to every single one of his subscribers. It was from a guy with an email address made of a seemingly random string of numbers. The email was entitled, "There's no saving him." And there held 2 unreleased videos Markiplier had recorded before his untimely disappearance. One of the videos was of Mark playing a glitched out game with the video title of Error 53, and there was another video of Mark playing a pixelated side-scroller game called Mr. Kitty Saves the World. Friends and family all tried to check on him in his apartment, but could not open the door due to it being both locked and seemingly barricaded from the other side. However, the few who stayed near the door long enough reported hearing a drawling groan from the inside of the apartment. The noise was quiet and hardly a whisper, but if you listen hard enough and long enough, you can hear the tortured yelp of a man, whispering out the words, "Help me." That is it for now. Goodbye.